Hello friends and welcome, ZQuixotix here with the top 5 soft supports of the patch right now. Also got a bit of a tier list here in case you're curious on other heroes that we may not talk about as much. Now this patch is relatively new and I can only play so much Dota, so it's not perfect, and I brought in someone to help me to share some of his expertise as well. I've got 5up Dota here who's also been making some support content and is about like 9-10k MMR, so way better than me, way better than a lot of you guys watching, I'm sure. So I'd love you guys to check out his channel after that. 5up Dota, how you doing, man?
Hello, I'm doing good, man. What's up?
Nothing much, just here to talk about some Dota. Love doing that.
What are we talking about?
So we're gonna talk about the best soft supports in our opinion. We're gonna compare it a little bit actually, since I'm sure we have different experiences playing the game. And I thought we'd start with a quick meta description, so that even if you don't play like any of these top 5 heroes and you're not interested in playing them, that's totally fine. But maybe you try to play the heroes you like in this style. So I'll start us off. For me, this patch is a lot about small objectives everywhere, and getting kills is really good. So you want to start off with a pretty strong lane if you can help it, kind of start to build a lead, and then that way whenever you go to these small different objectives and other people are trying to do it too, you can kill them and you get tons of gold that way. You just kind of just snowball your lead off these small objectives. And so you'll see that a lot of these strong heroes are great laners and have these early powerful spells to kind of do that. What about you? What do you think?
With the first point, I'm totally agreeing. Like, laning is still the most important thing in Dota, and it will always be the most important thing. But I feel like it changed a little bit with the meta. Like, people are grouping way earlier than before.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting usually around like 15 to 20 minutes, so just 5 men.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever does it first, I feel like the team wins because you're gonna outnumber them. The enemy position 1 or something else is gonna like farm, and you just stomp them once or twice. You go to the Rush pit, for example, enemy cannot contest Rush because it's insanely hard. And from there on, you're just like snowballing the entire game.
Do you think, I totally agree with that for like our games. The lower you go, I think there's less grouping. Do you feel like there's any difference in the way you play then? Do you kind of group when the team eventually groups?
I would say if the game is like getting lower and lower MMR, you should focus on yourself. Like, you should not start like thinking, yo, I need to do this. I need to help my team or whatever. You should just focus on yourself, keep farming, and whenever your teammates want to do something or you can't force them to do something, just hit creeps and just join in later. Like, you don't need to force something if your team doesn't want to be. If they don't want to, just farm, focus on yourself, and keep going. Whenever you achieve it, let's say you're a support playing +4 or +5, and you get like 3 or 4 items, you can literally solo win this game. If you have a good position, have like key items, and you know when to force. And you play heroes that I usually play that have like a very strong team fight, like turning around team fights and so ever. And you can mainly focus on that.
All right, with that out of the way, let's get into the top 5. And I guess before getting into the top 5, if you're curious about any of these heroes, they sound exciting, they sound fun, you want to play them, we have guides on both of our channels. I will be linking them everywhere in the description. So if you're curious about any of these heroes, check it out there. You might get some high-level information on how to play them. And to start us off, I will mention that Techies was definitely my #1 for sure, and then he got nerfed. I think he's still in the top 5. I don't know if he's like the #1, but definitely up here. 5up, is he in your top 5 too?
Yes, Techies is definitely my top 5 as well. I'm
Hell
not quite
yeah.
sure as well if he's like the #1,
Mm-hmm.
but I would say he's like tie with. Shit, I should not mention that.
We can redact that. We'll beep it out.
Um, I definitely think he's like tied with other heroes as well, but like overall, his laning stage is just so strong that he's like still one of the top heroes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, like you said, really strong laning stage. His Q's really annoying, super long attack range, being a universal hero. And then you take Blast off, which is like an insane amount of damage for a level 1 spell, plus the stun. Even after getting some nerfs to it, it's still really good. Sets up a ton of kill potential for any kind of aggressive carry, which is really popular right now. If you're in a pub, you got super passive carries, it's still pretty good. You might, like, people make mistakes all the time. They step onto your tower, right? Huge burst and stun. You can pick up some kills. After the laning stage, you participate really easily because now you got that stun for free. Before you had to buy that shard at 15 minutes, but that means that after your laning stage, you're free to go with the mid, go with the offlane, go wherever, and just like find these kills really easily. You got your ult for the utility, the vision, set up places in pubs. The lower you go, right, the easier it is to get those like mine kills. You place a couple mines somewhere, people just walk into them. And then, like you said, if nothing's happening, Techies is pretty good at farm. You can use your ult. You can kind of use the Q a little bit as well. So you can definitely find a lot of farm for yourself as this hero.
For me personally, the biggest like plus point on Techies is definitely the farming aspect. You can farm whenever, wherever you want. You can buy like travels, Adderlands, all these items to just like build up your entire farm. And you can play around a rush area with it, which makes it so much easier to actually fight for the rush. Protect it, like people are usually not even like contesting it anyway. But if you have a Techies, they can't even contest it. If they contest it, they will die 100%. The only thing I do not like on Techies right now personally is the Aghanims. The Aghanims on paper sounds very strong, but in my opinion, like 2-second building up time, plus you need to move to it deals, so it deals damage, is kinda meh, in my opinion. Like whenever people realize you just need to stand still or blink out or whatever, they will not move, and the Aghanims is completely useless for 4K gold.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten to try it too much. Like you said, it sounds good, and when like it finally activates and people are moving, it's good. But it either means you have to like set the sign up ahead of time, and then people don't walk near it, or you have to like blast off in and try to sit there for 2 seconds. So maybe if they reduce that time or increase the activation time, it becomes easier to use.
Yeah, definitely. I think if they reduce it to 1 second, then this Aghanims is very good because you also match your suicide stun duration, so it feels like much better than before. But like 2 seconds, whoever stuns you, your shield progress is gone, and you're completely useless in the fight then. Alright, 5 pair. The next one on my list is definitely Rubick. Like my personal playstyle with Rubick is like matching perfectly. I have like 1 or 2K games on him as well. And the aspects I really like on Rubick is like you can play greedy, you can do like flashy team fights, you can win team fights by yourself, you can farm a lot, you can split up the map a lot, you dominate on the lane, like almost nobody can actually outrate you in a 1v1 on the lanes. And I like to abuse that. Like whenever you have like this ability to like be greedy, but you also help your team with it, is like my key point for pubs, because whenever I start farming and getting items on a hero, I start like carrying the games. And this is like the best hero to do it with Rubick, because whenever you get like a black hole, a fissure, or anything like strong on this hero, you can solo win the team fights and you can keep going with them.
Yeah, and he's also on my top 5 list. I agree. And he's actually been I think in my opinion, like he's been a really strong support for actually quite a while now. For a while he was more favored as a 5, but I think he's back to like being a better 4 now. And one of the downsides of Rubick is when like there's not good spells in the game. But like we've been saying, right now it's a lot about strong lanes, getting like either farming up or getting active. And so people are picking a lot of heroes with really good spells. And so it feels like you can first phase Rubick and you're confident, like, yeah, they're eventually gonna pick a spell that I'm happy with. Like, for example, we have Techies up here. Techies has great spells to steal a lot of these heroes in this like A tier. There's a lot of spells that you're happy to get. So I think every game just feels really, really nice to Rubick compared to the past, where it's like, oh, there's nothing really for me to do. I could have been someone else.
I definitely agree in that, but like also these days, on like whenever you play Rubick, I feel like it doesn't really matter if you don't have anything to steal. Like you don't need these like flashy fissure steals, black hole steals, or whatever. Let's say for example the enemy is like Batrider. You play Rubick and you think like, I want a lasso. But the best spell as a Rubick for yourself is actually not a lasso, it is the sticky napalm or the E, because you can farm with it. Like you need small spells to actually do something with it. Like a lot of people thinking like, yo, I need like flashy spells to do something with Rubick. You don't. You just need to be like as annoying as possible, and that's how you play Rubick in a good way. Because whenever you annoy the people, you will eventually win the fights, because you are so annoying that people might either focus you and you outplay them, or you just own them so much that you just win the fight.
Yeah, no, I actually totally agree, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, I gotta get Black Hole, I gotta get like Ravage, and those are great steals, of course. But actually, sometimes some of the best steals are just like a low cooldown stun, because a lot of stuns are balanced by their duration, their cast range, and then Rubick just breaks that. He's like, yeah, longer stun, longer cast range, obviously, and so just getting like some low cooldown stun, low cooldown nuke. You just kind of like abuse it as Rubick.
Plus, one big point as well on Rubick is warding aspects. You can ward from like a billion range, and this feels so good. Like you don't even need to stand in the fights. and you can just ward off for your team on a cliff and win a team fight by that.
Yeah, I love it. And there's just so many active items right now too that are popular on supports. Although Rubick tends to go like a little greedy with like Aether Lens, stuff like that are a little more about like helping him. But if you do decide to get any of those like popular support items, tons of them are like way easier to cast when you have all that free cast range from the back line. Next on my list, I will mention Clinkz, which actually I realized I forgot to put in this A tier, but that's fine. He is here now. Clinkz, he got nerfed. And he got really popular and has started to drop off now. And to be honest, maybe at the highest level he shouldn't be up here, but I think for a lot of pub games, many of you might have felt that frustration of like being a support. My cores aren't very good, and there's always so much chaos, like people aren't working together. I really like Clinkz for that reason because the laning stage, you just harass, you get through it. It's pretty decent. Sometimes it's a little awkward, but eventually you hit 6 and you become this invis roamer with a lot of solo kill, farming potential, and that feels really nice in pub games, whether it's like a really coordinated game. Okay, I find the people with my invis, like we gank them, I bring damage, I'll buy like some utility stuff. If you're in a lower rank game, like, oh, I'm gonna get some damage, I'm gonna get some farm like on the enemy's half of the map, I'm gonna steal stuff, and eventually I'm gonna be strong like a core, because I mean that's what Clinkz was before. So I feel like for pub games he's really good. Maybe the higher up you go it drops off more, but at least even in my bracket, I'm finding a lot of success with him when people aren't doing things. I'm like, it's cool. I'm gonna eat creep. I'm gonna farm up. I'm gonna get strong.
My personal problem with it, I've played Clinkz a few times as well, and whenever I play like let's say 10k plus averages, he feels nice. He deals a ton of damage. It is very nice, but the problem is people are just going glimmers, pavis, and so ever on minute like 10 to 15, and I think if you don't have like a nullifier on minute 18 to 20. You feel kind of useless because everybody's just like avoiding you instead of like getting catched by you. So you can't really deal all your damage if you want that, and that's like the biggest downside in my opinion on Clinkz. But if you can have a very good decent timing on Desolator, Solar Crest, Nullifier especially, then I think this hero is very strong. And if you can find the farm, definitely go for it. But for my personal opinion, I don't like this hero.
So not up. Where would you have him on this whole list maybe?
I mean, I would put him actually on A. I wouldn't like I wouldn't put him on like S tier, but like a very good A tier. Like he's like between A and S, but for my personal playstyle, he's like not fitting. He just doesn't fit.
Gotcha. That's totally fair, right? We all have our preferences, styles, and I think for sure what you mentioned as a weakness of like, oh yeah, they buy all these items, I don't have the nullifier in time. That sounds, it's a rough time for Clinkz. Fortunately, and that's like, yeah, the lower you go, right? Some people aren't even, they're rushing the first item aghanim, stuff like that, the Midases, and you get to like really wreck those as Clinkz. So if you guys haven't tried it, haven't seen it, it's not a grief. It's actually pretty good. Although I will admit, you might get some teammates who are like, I'm gonna report you, like that's not a support, and people are always behind. They don't realize you can do it. Do support Clinkz, but it's pretty good. It even saw some pro play, so that's how you know, like, at least they saw some potential in it.
My third position on my list is Batrider. I know it sounds a bit strange for everybody, probably, but if you watch Tier 1 Dota right now, supports are abusing Batrider a lot. And the reason behind that is, first of all, his spells are just strong. His laning is annoying, like you can't really do much against it. Even if you have counters, like Batriders are not skilling sticky anymore on the lane as a support. So they're just going for W and E, and they just run you down because the E for some reason is like dealing 60 damage per second on level 2. Plus, if everybody remembers Death Prophet meta, where she got like 340 or 330 movement speed, the same happened with Batrider. They reduced the movement speed on his E completely, but he has 330 movement speed. That basically means if you have a Wound Lace plus Boots, you're running around with 400 movement speed. And every support loves that. Doing that, you can run off the cliffs, you can check cliffs for wards, you can deward everything alone by yourself. You have the ability to farm, as I like. Plus, you have very strong spells actually to catch people. Like, I've played so many bad games right now. I always get like a 15-minute blink plus travels or blink plus drums or whatever. Like, I get 2 items for 15 minutes as a +4 because I'm farming so much with this hero. Whenever there's like nothing to do, you can just like jungle it up. One Firefly, you farm 3 camps, and you good. And you can do that on level 3, level 4, level 5, it doesn't really matter. But overall, his laning is also insanely strong because of these 2 spells. And people, like right now at least, people don't really know what to do against him. I'm pretty sure it's gonna shift until like the Major or TI. People gonna understand what to do against it again, and then they're gonna feel comfortable again playing against it. But like right now, you can abuse this in pubs a lot because you're basically the fourth core, and you can play like that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a lot of fun. I started to play like 1 or 2 games of him, so still getting used to it. But it's a lot of fun. It's definitely a support that actually he's been a support before, but it's been a while, so it's something new and fresh if you want to try it. And then like you said, feels really strong. I thought the W nerf might hurt a lot, going from like 25% down to 10% slow, since a lot of Batrider supports leave it at a 1 point like value point. But it's still super long cast range. It's got the knockback, and 10% slow is still pretty good in the laning stage. But actually, it didn't feel that bad at all. And then, yeah, like you said, it feels pretty good to farm. It's nice. You just like, you can even steal enemy stacks too. Like sometimes as a support, you see like, oh, here's a big stack, but you can't really do anything about it. Batrider's like, okay, guys, I'm gonna sit here for 20 seconds. I'm gonna get real rich, real fast. So I agree, it feels great. And I'm glad you mentioned the warding too, because it always feels amazing to have as a support. Being able to put sentries on the low ground is really good this meta, because the map is so big. We don't have enough sentries to cover everything. So if you don't have a way to check cliffs, you got to put sentries on there if you don't have your courier, and that kind of limits your potential to check the map. But when you can put the sentries on the low ground, you can kind of cover more useful area, and that helps a lot with warding right now. Yeah, Batrider's fun, man.
Dude, it's crazy. Like, it's actually annoying as well. Like whenever you play against it on the lane, it's just pain.
Yeah.
It's so pain.
Do you stack before you do your farming, or is it just like fight? Okay, I'll just farm this single camp when I have time.
Fight, and actually farm whenever I got the time for it. It's just crazy how much damage the E does. Like I think it's like 120 damage on level 4.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 120.
Yeah, you can do it. It's like you can just solo kill like 3 camps. It's just crazy. Even ancients like die instantly in like 10 seconds if you just like stick them 4 or 3 times.
All right, then for me, I have Skywrath up here. Oh, actually, he's already right here. Skywrath, really good in pubs. You start off with a strong laning stage. You got that annoying poke. You're pretty fast, just like Batrider, like you mentioned, that move speed. Skywrath naturally pretty fast, lots of poke. And then, as many of you have probably seen or experienced, you can go an Atos build. You just get that solo kill potential in pubs, which is great. You can build other items as well, while still contributing a lot. A lot of people sleep on the power of that instant silence. It's really good right now versus a lot of these heroes that are like spellcasters, or also a lot of the mids are mobile mids who hate getting silenced. And so having that for free on your position 4, and it's got a pretty decent cast range. It's not too hard to use. It just feels really nice to be Skywrath. And then maybe you don't have those like meta heroes in your games. It's still okay. You still got that solo kill potential off a strong lane, and that always feels nice to have.
My number 4 is Sky as well, and I agree with all the points you actually just mentioned. But like one big point, in my opinion, that is like benefiting Sky a lot is the portals, or the portal gates, or whatever you want to call them. You can actually just rotate between them very easy, and you have a long range slow. Like you don't need to be like right next to a lane or TP to the tower or whatever to gank. You can just like abuse the portals, plus your movement speed is great as well. And you can just gank from like a billion range. You can go around the Lotus's thing and just like start the fight from there with your slow with a grenade. And whoever like is staying on the lane is dead, because the slow is just so strong with a grenade as well. It's like 40 or 50%. And if you have like one more slow or one more stun on the lane on your position 1 or position 5, you can just turn any fight because you have 2v3 and you outnumber them and you automatically win the fight. Like it's very rare that the off lane in a 2v1 situation is winning against 3 people. Like it's very, very, very rare. I remember back in the day, whenever people were like dual laning off lane and they got ganked by 3 people, sometimes they actually turn it around. But I think this patch I've never seen somebody actually turn it around. Even with a TP, at this point where you get outnumbered, you actually just win the fight, and you can actually do this very easy with Skywrath early on in the laning stages, and later on your damage potential is just insane. Whenever you have like an Axe, a Magnus or whatever on your team, you can just combo together with the silence plus the ulti and you burst anything. It doesn't really matter. Even if they have Glimmer or Pavis, you usually burst the damage through that. So that's like a very big benefit on this hero.
How do you feel about his farming? This seems like the weakest farmer of your list so far.
Yeah, this is like, I don't like that part on this hero, but like sometimes you get these like times where you can also like sit on a wave and like hit creeps for a little bit. But the biggest downside on Sky is whenever you don't get like a decent first 10 minutes, you can fall off very quickly. And you need to pay a lot of attention early on to like snowball a little bit. It doesn't need to be a lot, but just a little bit so you get your early items on, and then you can snowball through that. But like if nothing works early on, like the first 5 minutes, you don't get a single kill, you die like 3 or 2 times, it's very hard to recover with this hero because one blink, one stun, you're just dead anytime. And this is like, yeah, very rare on a +4 hero that you like instantly die against anything.
Yeah.
But it's also like you have 800 HP minute 15 and you have 0 armor, so you just die.
Yeah, it's rough out there if your positioning's not good. But I'll take this moment to mention real quick, off of having good lanes, I actually realized we've got 4 ranged heroes up here right now, or 5, I guess, in our top 5 so far. And a really common mistake that I see a lot on Skywrath, and you can make on these other heroes as well, is like you just don't auto attack enough. A lot of people just think like, oh, he's got like this slow cooldown spell, so that's how I'm going to harass. But actually, a lot of the harass from these heroes just come from right clicking, being long range, being fast. You just find these like poke, poke, poke here, there, here, everywhere, right? Like 2 to 3 auto attacks kind of equals 1 spell. So the more auto attacks you get in, you whittle them down, and then that's kind of when you like throw out all the spells to like burst them and finish the kill. I see way too many people just buy like 3 clarities at the start and just try to like harass through spells and like, okay, I'm out of mana, I just like sit in the back and clarity up. But that's not the way you want to play these heroes.
If you want to get good at laning, you should count your trade off with the enemies. Like, I'm not sure if a lot of people know him, Omar, the position 4 on Quest. I know he does it every single game. He counts his hits to the enemy, and whenever he has less hits than the enemies, he's like, alright, I need more hits than him. Because whenever he's trading very efficient. And whenever you can achieve that you're always like trying to trade better than the enemy, you're gonna eventually win this lane because you're gonna have the advantage with the HP or with the resources you can buy or they can buy. So whenever you can like count your hits, or just like, for example, play a game, try to be aggressive on the lane, and whenever the game is over, rewatch it and count your hits. If you did more than the enemy, then you're good. If you didn't, then you need to think about it more in the game and in the lane. If you want to get better on lanes.
Yeah, I like that actually. I think about that like in the moment, I'm like, oh, he just hit me for free. But I don't think I've ever like gone through the entire like say like 10 minutes of laning and just like 1, 2, 3, like all the way up. I do it in like small bursts, but I might maybe I'll give that a go. I'll see where I fall.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be like in game that you count, but like just think about it a lot and like rewatch it after the game. Like watch your replay and just count the hits. If you do more than the enemies, then you're good. If you don't, then you need to think about it more in the game actually, because it's very important, especially against heroes that have a lot of regen or they need to buy a lot of regen. If you can like interrupt that by hitting them every single time, you're gonna like force them to buy more regen. And you're gonna get even more out of it because they're gonna lose gold and you don't gonna lose gold. Because usually Sky as well, so we go back to it, it's a very strong trader. Like you just use your W, you use a Q or your silence, and you deal like 400 damage with your right clicks, if you do it properly. If you just use your W and one right click and then you go back, you deal like 180 damage. But if you hit like 4 times, plus your W, then you deal like at least 400 to 300 damage. So you need to always think about it, trade efficient, not inefficient.
All right, finally for me, I have Spirit Breaker. I think this hero fills in a lot of what is frequently missing in pub games, which is like you got 3 people picking like farming cores, and then no one can actually start a fight. No one has a stun. Spirit Breaker brings tons of stuns, very low cooldown. You got that fun RNG bash, you know, if you like to do a bit of gambling there. And I think he's just really tanky. It's something that's like always missing in a fight. And he just feels really strong right now, scales pretty well. A lot of the items feel nice on him. And he actually scales like into a really strong hero. He's like zooming all over the map once you get some items. So it actually makes the farming a little easy. But if you have a really bad early game, even though I said like it covers the draft weaknesses, if you have nowhere to gank at the start, it actually does feel really bad. So that's kind of like the dangerous part about pubs, I'd say. But especially when the drafting is like pretty decent, you have like a couple active heroes, like at least one, and that you can play with, then he feels great. He feels like he offers a ton for these ganks, and then that global pressure. And even with the twin gates, like he doesn't have to use them, but he can, and so he can like twin gate over and then charge from a new angle people don't expect.
I feel like Spirit Breaker is like similar to Sky. whenever you don't have like an okay-ish early on game, you will be very, very weak because you can fall off pretty quickly. Like this hero needs a lot of experience and like 1 or 2 items, otherwise this hero just feels awkward to play, especially as a support because you're not focusing on farm. But
Yeah.
overall, I definitely agree. This hero is strong and he can actually work if you make it. Like if you want to make it work, you're gonna do it.
Yeah, and like to your point, yeah, Skywrath being a ranged hero has a little easier time in lane, I'd say. Just like even if your off laner can't help you at all, you can do a lot of annoying poke, a lot of stuff. Spear Breaker being melee, it's a little harder to get stuff done if you don't have anyone to play with.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely a risk of having a really bad lane and just dropping off. But also I think because of charge being a faster, it's like almost a little bit more potential as well. It's like, oh, this lane's going well. Now it's easier for me to like zoom to that lane, help that lane as well. So maybe a bit of a risk reward playing Spirit Breaker.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. The only point I think in the meta right now that is like not good for Bada is that all the range position 3 heroes are actually falling off a lot. Like you don't see any DPs anymore, Venos. Sometimes you see Enigma, but very rare. And overall, the range heroes are like not that popular anymore. And having like a double median offlane is like strange most of the times because you're gonna lose it probably as a double melee against like a good enemy safe lane. But overall, if you have like a range hero on your lane, then you're I think always good to go because this hero is strong. But I feel like if you have like a situation where your offlane is a melee already, I don't think it's the best way to like pick Spirit Breaker because usually as a support, everybody knows that you need to adapt. Don't expect your chorus to adapt to you, so try to adapt to your chorus. Whenever you see like your offlaner picked already, don't pick double melee, just try to like pick him a strong lane support so you dominate the lane and he's happy. And if you see he has a DP or something, then you can go for the bot easily.
And then what about you? I think he's not on your top 5. Who's your 5th pick then?
Indeed. My top 5 is Earthshaker. Like, whoever knows me knows that I'm also a level 30 Earthshaker. I have like 2k games on him as well. But overall, if you look at it, he got buffed in the recent patches only. TI is getting close, and everybody knows whenever TI is getting close, Shaker's getting overly buffed, and after TI, he's getting deadly nerfed. So it's like always like that. Every TI patch, Shaker's getting insanely buffed, and like right now, he's not gonna get nerfed probably until the major. Maybe after the major, he's gonna get nerfed, but I do not think so. So overall, his spells are very strong. You can win lanes by like repositioning with Fissure easily. And that's like a big benefit for your offlane every single game. You can just like re-put your offlane in front of your tower and you can just chill. Like you can even leave your position 3 alone and like roam to the XP runes, to the bounty runes, to the action runes, to gank the middle, because you are free with that. Like with Shaker, you don't have any pressure like, yo, I need to be scared my offlaner is gonna die because his wave is like in front of the enemy tower. You can always like, yo, my wave is in front of my tower, I can do whatever I want. But the important thing is like communication. You need to tell your offlaner, yo, I'm leaving for the XP rune or I'm leaving for the action rune, and like tell him before you leave. Don't tell him when you're already gone because it might be too late and he might die easily.
Yeah, and that's something that he has, like you were saying, Spirit Breaker also has an issue, like, hey, I want to roam, but like can't leave this guy, oh, maybe we're double melee. I think Earthshaker doesn't suffer from that as much because, like you said, you have Fissure to pull the lane back. Is that something you think, like, you just do every game pretty much? You always, like, Fissure your own wave, or is there something you look for before doing that?
I think you can always do it. Like, there are, like, some very, very, very rare scenarios where you can block the enemy wave. So your wave is pushing into the enemy tower. But if you want to do that, you need to think about blocking the camps. Like, you need to block both camps, otherwise you cannot do that. But overall, I think the safest play is always, like, blocking your own wave, so you get, like, a decent position in front of your tower. Like, not completely in your front, but, like, around that. And then you need to, like, interrupt the pulse. Like, whenever you can do that, Shaker's also, like, decent-ish at, like, trading 1v1 against position 5 players, or position 5 heroes. And in these kind of scenarios, like, let's say, for example, you hit the enemy 5, and the enemy 5 is, like, hitting you 1v1. If you want to use your Fissure, always think about it. Your Fissure is a very long range and also got buffed the recent patch. Try to Fissure him plus the position 1. Even though if you push your wave, you're like double damaging and you're being efficient with your Fissure. And you deal like more damage to him plus to the enemy safe laner. And you can actually abuse that. Like one thing I also like to do as Shaker is whenever I'm level 2, I'm interrupting pulls or I'm blocking the enemy camps. I'm like pulling my wave back and then I'm like warding up behind the enemy T1 tower sometimes, and I'm just like hunting for Curious because you one-shot Curious with EW, and that's like one of the most annoying things to play against.
It's great. Actually, I don't usually play that much Earthshaker, so more for me it's miserable watching Earthshaker just like slam my courier into the ground with the one shot.
I definitely agree on that. It's annoying, but like that's the thing. You should never get into the attitude with Shaker, yo, I want to dominate the lane. It's always like you want to either 50-50 or you want to win it by a little bit. And you're going to win it by 1 point. You let your offlaner a lot of solo XP, so he's strong. And whenever he's like level 4 or 5, and you are actually level 2, the enemy is probably level 3 or 4. So just giving a lot of experience to your offlaner, and whenever your offlaner is actually using this advantage, you're gonna actually own them. Because it's always like, whoever is the higher level usually is the stronger hero. And you have a fissure to actually block them off. If the enemy have like no way of getting out, you can even get killed at some point with your fissure. You can block people off very easy. Even though the lane is like wider open, it doesn't really matter because your fissure got buffed as well with the range. I think it's like 400 plus range. And this is like very good. It's just insane to actually lane with this hero if you do it properly.
So those are our top fives, and again, if any of those sound interesting to you, I will be linking the guides we have for some of these heroes. I don't think we have it every single one, but maybe if you want it, let us know, and we can work on it. You can always join our streams. But for the rest of the heroes, I know some of you will be asking. If you don't see a hero on here, I either forgot, and you can probably make it work, especially the lower brackets you go. You can play fives as four. Like, it's better just play a hero well than try to force yourself into something new. But there are certain heroes that are meant to be fours more than fives, so I think I got most of them. And if there's someone's missing, they're probably down here in the C or the D tier. But maybe I'm wrong. 5 up. What do you think? How do you any you'd like to move up or down anywhere?
Mm, the only thing I would actually change, at least on the A and B tier, is the Venomancer.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's more of a 5. Like, I know a Venom 4 can work, but I just feel like he does the same thing as a 5.
Mm-hmm.
And his potential of being a 5 is like way stronger because you can just be annoying, you can place your wards, you can move around the map, and as a 4 you more like you wanna move on the map. But with the Venom, with your movement speed especially, it feels awkward doing that from a position 4 perspective because the enemy has like a Skywrath Mage or a Shaker or Rubick, and you are just a Venom with like 280 movement speed or whatever. It just feels awkward for yourself. So plus, one big point as well, enemy safe lanes, or overall safe lane heroes, tend to be aggressive more than offlaners right now. And that's like one big benefit as a Veno. If you play on safe lane and you have a Slark or you have a Monkey or anything like that, you can dominate lanes. But with Veno 4, you usually have like heroes like Mars or X or Centaur or whatever. These heroes are not really good at like being aggressive if you play against Monkey or something else, for example. So you can just like actually feed off that. So I would definitely put this hero a little bit lower, at least from a position 4 perspective. But overall, the hero is insanely strong. But for me personally, it is a 5, not a 4.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. This is probably some. I love Venomancer, so I agree. He's definitely a better five. I think he's actually a really good five. I might put him in my own top five there. But I cannot deny all your points for his weaknesses as a position four. They're all very true. Um, yeah, I can't defend him. He probably should be down like B tier or C tier for being a position four. Anything else? Anything else pop out to you? I know you like Monkey King a lot. Do you think he should be higher than B?
Mm, I would say yes, but I think it's just like personal preference. But overall, this hero has a weird space in the meta right now. In a competitive way, I would say yeah, he's A tier.
Mm-hmm.
But in pubs, it's like not sure. Like in a competitive way, I can see him on the A tier because you can flex him a lot. But in pubs, it's like yeah, he's just too weak right now on the lane most of the times because
Mm-hmm.
people are tending to pick strong safe lanes. It's not like back in the day where people just pick like double melee or something and you can just go passive and destroy them.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, you need to be very good at monkey. You need to abuse all the abilities you have. You need to dodge a lot of hits. If you mischief, you need to like jump around the trees perfectly. Your stun got nerfed as well. Like overall, this hero is like in a weird spot right now. As a core, he's top. But as a support, I tend to like put him on the B tier because he's like not the greatest right now, I would say.
Yeah, I think all that makes sense, and they keep like you said, because he's a carry and even a mid, right? He's a core
Mm.
and a support. It's like hard to balance, and so from the support side, they keep decreasing his stun duration and increasing the cooldown. And for like core, it's like okay, it's fine, like I can get through that. But as a support, that is kind of like a good chunk of what you offer, along with
Mm.
I mean everything else as well too. But like it's really painful as a support who doesn't level up as fast, and it just sits at this low stun, long cooldown for longer. It feels more painful compared to like some of these other fours you could pick. But I
Yep.
do think he's nice because he's a good carry, right? If you tend to play those pub games that frequently drag to like 50 to 60 minutes, Monkey King's great for like that some solo carry potential in your pub games.
But let me think. Is there like one more hero I do disagree on? I
Okay.
would say actually Mirana. Like I don't think Mirana is actually A tier. Like I have
Okay.
played a lot of Mirana
Mm-hmm.
before the patch, and I've played a lot of Mirana this patch. I just feel like she got a way weaker since she's a universal hero. Like in the laning stage, she just doesn't feel that strong anymore. Like either she's just weak, or people understood how to play against her.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of the other. Like either people just are very good against it to play against it, or he just got weaker because of the universal change. And like the universal change is like a bit weird because the damage is not that high anymore. You can have damage, but with a Mirana, usually you don't want that. Like you don't want damage as a Mirana, especially as a support. You just want to go for team items. And she's just in a weird spot. I've seen a lot of cores on something like picking Mirana as well.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work out that great because like overall Mirana is like just not a strong hero.
Mm-hmm.
His her laning is not strong, her mid game is not strong, and maybe at some point, like with 6 slotted or 4 items, she's getting strong, but it's a long way to go there. So yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like B tier though, or like even lower than that?
I think B tier is fine. Like the aspect of the ulti is like still there. Like the
Mm-hmm.
ulti is just broken. Everybody's invis. People are not buying detection. So that's like the biggest benefit Mirana gets, I think, right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think she did just get a nerf in like this most recent patch. That's what I was checking real quick right there. So yeah, that hurt her a little
Yeah.
bit. And then I think in the end, it does come down to the arrows. Like if you can hit a lot of arrows, maybe your team has setup. That's gonna feel pretty nice.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't have it. And I think I mentioned earlier, right? There's a lot of popular mobile heroes right now. For example, Wind Ranger, and it's not easy to hit these heroes like zooming around everywhere if your team doesn't have stuns. But actually, all the stuns got brought down this patch, so like the setup itself is a lot harder for her too. Um, yeah, so that might have hurt her, but still decent, like you said. If you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
she's not like I think there's worse supports.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely, definitely. And another hero I would think about is like Earth Spirit.
Hmm.
I'm a big Earth Spirit enjoyer,
Hmm.
but actually I would keep it on A. But the problem with Earth Spirit on position 4 is actually your laning is just too weak. Like whenever I play Earth Spirit on pos 4, I feel insanely useless on the lanes, and it's crazy how useless you are sometimes.
Hmm.
But overall in the game, he feels great. Like your roaming potential, your ganking potential, everything is like strong. Like you are strong in team fights, your ulti is insanely strong, dealing damage and so on. But like overall, I would say Earth Spirit is actually a strong core. Like middle or off lane, Earth Spirit, I feel like he's damn good. But on support, I just feel like he needs more tweaks on his lane. Like whenever he gets like a stronger laning, then it's serious like a top tier support. But like right now, I would also say like B tier because his laning is just not strong enough. Like if you play him on middle, you
Hmm.
will see this hero is strong in the lane in a 1v1, but at the points of like dual lanings on the side lanes, he's actually very weak. Like you can't outrate the enemy 5. You can pull waves, but usually nobody does that anymore. Like dragging creep waves, it's
Hmm.
like very rare that you see that. And the camps are always blocked, so you can't even do that. So
Hmm.
you need to lane actually. And on these parts, Earthspirit is very, very weak.
Yeah, actually, that's something I've noticed as well. Like creep dragging seems to have died down a lot, and I don't have an exact reason. My guess has been like the lane's actually a little more compact than it used to be. Even though the map got bigger, like the pull camps feel a little closer, and the new like layout of the map makes it feel like it's a little more awkward to do creep dragging. Is that like your take on it, or is there? Do you think there's
Mm,
another reason people have stopped doing it as much?
I think right now people are not doing it as much because the meta is more focused on laning. Like it's always like that whenever a new patch is there, At the first like 6 months, people are focusing only on lanes, and then they trying to experiment. And it's like the same as well this patch. Like you see
Mm.
Techies, you see Rubick, you see Sky, Clinkz, or Batrider. All these heroes are very strong on lane. And with these heroes, you don't really wanna like pull creep waves. Like you don't want to do it. You just want to lane there, sit there, hit the enemies, and try to dominate the lane. And one big point as well is people got very good at like pulling creeps back.
Mm.
Like I've seen in my pubs at least, and I'm also like I need to do it. Whenever you sit on your lane as a +4, you usually pull the creeps back for your offlaner. Like you pull the creep aggro,
Mm-hmm.
you pull them back, and then it's gonna be like 3 melee creeps is gonna go to your side, and the other 3 melee creeps from you gonna go to the enemy side. And whoever like gets punished first for that is gonna like eventually win the lane. It's
Mm-hmm.
always like a showdown.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had it so many times that the enemy's like pulling the creeps back, and my offlaner is doing the same, and I just follow the enemy +1 and force him into his tower, and then we automatically push the wave by him, and then we can like stabilize our lane.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do that properly, you actually need to block both camps. Otherwise, it's gonna be a bit shaky again. Whenever the enemy can actually pull waves, it's gonna be awkward again, and they might actually start to pull their wave back in again into their advantage. So this
Mm-hmm.
is like always a 50-50.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, and if you're leaving the lane to like creep drag, then all these strong heroes, they're either like punishing you, you're on your own, and like you said, you're a weaker laner. As
Yeah,
you know, some of these heroes that need to creep drag, you're doing it because you're a weak laner. Then you're getting punished one like just by the enemy 5, maybe,
yeah,
or there's like, okay, I'll just kill your off laner then because you're gone. Uh,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So then it's like, I got your creeps, but you're dead. You know, yeah. So that is our top fives and, kind of the rest of it. Of course, you can move things up and down. And if you disagree, feel free to let us know. And like I said earlier, keep an eye out for any guides that we may already have. I'll link them. And if there's someone that you think is really interesting that we haven't covered, let us know that as well so that maybe we can make some videos for that. But that is all for this one. Thank you, 5UP, so much for joining. Everyone, please go and check out his channel. He also streams. All the links will be there. Thank you so much, man, for being here today.
No problem, my man, and thank you for inviting me.
All right, everyone. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in another video. Bye.
Bye bye.